Every single year, the average household throws away hundreds of pounds worth of food, not because they don't have enough, but because they're storing the wrong things. And ignoring the foods that actually last, the kind of foods that people relied on long before supermarkets existed, the kind of foods that quietly sit on shelves for years without going bad. Today we're going to go through 12 of those overlooked survival foods, and one of these can last decades, not just years. Let's start with something most people don't even think of as food: charcoal. At first it sounds strange, but charcoal has been used for centuries alongside food storage, not just cooking, because when clean water becomes a problem, everything becomes a problem. Charcoal can help filter water, reduce impurities, and support safer storage conditions. Most people stock snacks, smart people stock systems, and charcoal is part of that system. Iodized salt. This one looks basic. Too basic. Which is exactly why people underestimate it. Salt doesn't expire in the way most foods do. It might clump, it might harden, but it doesn't spoil. And for most of human history, salt wasn't just for flavor. It was survival. Salt pulls moisture out of food, and without moisture, bacteria struggle to grow. That means longer-lasting food, even without refrigeration. So it's not just something you add to meals, it's something that helps protect them. Dried mushrooms. Fresh mushrooms go bad quickly, everyone knows that. But dried mushrooms are a completely different story. When properly dried and stored, they can last for years, and when you add water back, they don't just come back, they become stronger, more concentrated in flavor, more useful in small amounts. A handful can transform a basic meal into something rich and satisfying, and when you're working with limited ingredients, that matters more than people realize. Unflavored gelatin. This is one of the most overlooked items on this list, because most people don't understand what it actually does. Gelatin thickens liquids, it adds structure, but more importantly, it helps stretch food. You can take something simple, like broth, and turn it into something more filling, more substantial, more satisfying. In situations where food is limited, stretching what you have becomes just as important as having it. Most people focus on how much food they have. Very few think about how far it can go. Sardines. These are often ignored or, just avoided. But honestly, they're one of the most practical foods you can store. They come sealed, they last for years, and they're ready to eat immediately. No cooking, no preparation, nothing. And this next part really matters. They're nutrient-dense, protein, healthy fats, essential nutrients, all in a compact form. Because in long-term situations, it's not just about eating, it's about staying functional. Whole wheat berries. This is one of the most powerful foods on this list, and, well, also one of the least used, because it's just not convenient. Whole wheat berries are raw, unprocessed wheat, and when stored properly, they can last for decades, not months, not just years, decades. Now compare that to regular flour. Flour goes bad much faster, it loses quality, and eventually, it becomes unusable. Whole wheat berries solve that problem. You can grind them into flour when you need it, cook them whole, or store them long-term without worrying about spoilage. This is long-term thinking in its simplest form. Vinegar. Most people already have this, but honestly, they don't use it properly. Vinegar has natural acidic properties that make it incredibly useful for preservation. It can be used to pickle foods, extend shelf life, and maintain safer storage conditions. And, like salt, it doesn't really expire in the traditional sense. It remains usable for years. That kind of reliability is rare, and, honestly, incredibly valuable. Dried chickpeas. This is where simplicity wins. Most people think chickpeas are just another basic food, but they can sit on a shelf for years, and still turn into one of the most filling meals you can make. They're cheap, easy to store, and extremely durable. Once cooked, they become versatile. You can use them in stews, mash them, build entire meals around them. They're not just food. They're a foundation. Animal fat. This is one people often ignore, or avoid completely, but it's one of the most energy-dense foods you can store. Fat contains more calories per gram than protein or carbohydrates, which means you need less of it to get the same energy. Historically, animal fat was stored and used for cooking, preservation, and survival. When properly prepared and stored, it can last a long time, and it adds something most dry foods lack: satisfaction, because eating isn't just physical, it's psychological, and meals that feel complete are easier to sustain long-term. Nutritional yeast. This one surprises people. It doesn't look like much, but it's packed with nutrients. It has a long shelf life, and it adds flavor to otherwise bland foods. That matters more than you think, because when food becomes repetitive, people eat less. And that creates problems over time. Nutritional yeast helps prevent that. It makes simple meals more enjoyable, which makes them sustainable. Miso Paste. This is one of the oldest preserved foods still used today. It's fermented, which naturally extends its shelf life, and it's incredibly concentrated. A small amount can transform an entire dish. It adds depth, saltiness, complexity. Most people ignore it because they don't use it every day, but that's exactly why it works. It sits there, stable, ready when you need it. Cream of tartar. This is one of the most unexpected items on this list because it doesn't look like food at all, but it plays a role in stabilizing and preserving other ingredients. It helps maintain structure in recipes, extends usability, and like many items on this list, it has a long shelf life. It's not something you use often, but when you need it, nothing else replaces it. Now step back for a second. Most people stock their kitchen based on what they already eat, what's convenient, what's familiar, but that's not how long-term food works. Long-lasting food is about function, durability, flexibility. It's about choosing items that don't fail when conditions change. Because when things are easy, anyone can eat. But when things get difficult, only the prepared stay comfortable. Most people prepare for the next meal. Very few prepare for the moment things stop being easy. And when that happens, the difference isn't luck. It's what you chose to keep.